नमस्कार. अ व्हेरी गुड इव्हनिंग टू ऑल ऑफ यू. माझं नाव श्वेता वेर्णेकर आणि मी परिसरबरोबर काम करते. So it gives me a lot of happiness. I'm very happy to be welcoming you today to the Parisar annual lecture. And I think it's my task today here is doing three things. One is welcoming you all. The second is to talk about Sujit sir, Sujit Patwardhan, whom I think all of you know that he is a founder member of Parisar and an ex-trustee, and he passed away recently in 2022. So I've also been entrusted with a task of talking something about him, which is quite a difficult task, so to say. Easy and difficult, but when you want me to do it in a time-bound manner, it is difficult. And the third thing is to let you know about what Parisar is doing as of now, what kind of things we are working on, what are our thematic areas. So I've already done the first part. I welcomed you all. And the second part, which is to talk about him, I don't think I can do that in a manner which is very proper, which is formal, saying that, he did this and he did that. Because that's not the kind of relationship that we've had with him. It has always been very informal, it has always been very open. And I think the best way that I can speak about him today is to sort of weave what he is for us into when I speak about the annual lecture, when I speak about Parisar. I think that's the only way I can do justice to this whole task that has been given to me. So yeah, that being said, the annual lecture, I think it's today's annual lecture is special for me and for the Parisar team for two main reasons. One is, of course, the fact that we are actually sort of reviving this tradition after a huge gap. So the last Parisar annual lecture was in 2011. And after that, I think it's more than 10 years now. And we've not been able to do it for one reason or the other. But this year we've decided to do it and we are doing it. And this is in memory of Sujit sir. So again, that's also why it is so special. And I'd like to mention that before 2011, whatever lectures we've had, they've been on diverse topics. They've been like really, we've been blessed with fantastic speakers. And we've sort of listened them speak about different issues, be it agriculture, energy, biodiversity, governance. So sort of never actually related to what we are really doing at Parisar, but in a way linked to the larger canvas of environment. And I think that is the special part about it. And the second reason why this is special is because what these kind of lectures or these kind of events meant for Sujit sir. आय थिंक सुजित सरांसाठी ह्या अशा ज्या स्पेसेस होत्या की जिथे आयडियाज एक्सचेंज होतात, जिथे आपण एकमेकांशी बोलतो, संवाद साधतो, आपण जाणून घेतो की बाकीची लोक काय करतायत जगात. आपल्याला असं वाटत असतं नेहमी की ओके, आर स्ट्रगल इज द स्ट्रगल अँड वॉट वी आर डुईंग इज द थिंग, बट देर आर मेनी थिंग्स दॅट आर बीइंग डन. अँड सुजित सर प्लेस्ड अ लॉट ऑफ इम्पॉर्टन्स अँड अ लॉट ऑफ व्हॅल्यू to such kind of gatherings like the annual lecture, any kind of public meetings. And I think one thing that he really imbibed in all of us as members of Parisar, as team members of Parisar, was the fact that yes, you're working on different things and you have to do your everyday. You have to go to your job, you have to do whatever is there on your project. But he always insisted that you need to be able to go beyond your everyday, go beyond your project, go beyond your funded projects, and be able to see how what you're doing is actually connected to this larger canvas of environment. And I think that was something that he instilled in us and always reminded us, because it's very easy to get caught up into, this project, आज ये करना है, कल ये करना है, उद्या हे करायचं है, deadlines and all of that. But he always insisted that you need to be able to go beyond this. And I think now I'm realizing that what he said was quite profound, because we talk about this thing about corporates having burnouts after a couple of years of working. But we always sort of don't recognize that in the social sector, burnout is a very small word. I think we carry immense emotional burden, immense social burden of the fact that we are trying to change something in the system. And we've been working for 30 odd years, more than 30 years, and still there's so much to do. So there are a lot of setbacks in the process, there are a lot of things that you have to deal with in the process. And it's very easy to be depressed, it's very easy to be bitter, it's very easy to say ki ithe kai honar nahi, soda sagda. But these meetings, I think meetings like these, the energy that these meetings bring, are very important in keeping your perspective fresh, in giving you new ideas, because there are a lot of people doing a lot of things, and it's very important to know what they are doing and how they are doing it. So now I sort of understand more deeply why he insisted on these things. की स्वतःचं हे जे नेहमीच आपलं फायर फायटिंग चालू असतं की अरे आज ते लेटर पाठवायचं आहे, आज हे करायचं आहे, ते सोडून थोडं त्याच्या पुढे बघायची आपली एक विजन असली पाहिजे. So I think this annual lecture is important for these two main reasons for me. Moving ahead, I think I'd like to mention a little bit about Parisar. So of course, Vijay Pananspe sir will speak about how Parisar came into being, why Parisar came into being. I think he's the best person to do that. But I'd be mentioning more about what we are doing as of now. So in any organization, I think you have a certain evolution, and Vijay sir will of course speak more about that. But I'll just like to mention that over the years, the way we've evolved, I think I can very safely say that sustainable urban transport is one of our major core issues. Um, Very simply speaking, what do we mean by sustainable urban transport? What we are saying is that तुमचं शहर आपलं शहर कसंही असलं तरी पण प्रत्येक माणसाला त्याच्याकडे गाडी असो अथवा नसो, एका जागेहून दुसऱ्या जागी जाण्यासाठी सोयीस्कर, स्वस्त आणि कम्फर्टेबल असा एक मार्ग असला पाहिजे. म्हणजे माझी गाडी असल्याशिवाय मला जाताच येत नाही हा प्रकार नसायला पाहिजे. अँड दॅट्स व्हेरी सिम्पली वॉट सस्टेनेबल अर्बन ट्रान्सपोर्ट मीन्स. अँड फॉर दॅट यू नीड बेसिकली गुड पब्लिक ट्रान्सपोर्ट सिस्टम्स, you need good cycling facilities and good walking facilities. This is, I'm very simplifying it to a very, very atomic level, I feel, but there are many more nuances to it. So this is what we are mainly working on for sustainable urban transport. And in that, of course, there are a lot of things that are there which will help us realize this vision. And we are also toying with a lot of new, very, interesting ideas like going car free, pedestrianization of Lakshmi Road, pedestrianization of some other areas, low carbon mobility. So all these are aspects of sustainable urban mobility, and they sort of will help us realize the vision of sustainable urban mobility. Now, two other areas which are very closely related to that are road safety and urban street design. So road safety, of course, I don't think anybody in the room will say that we are okay if people die on the roads. So I think it's just very simple that our roads should be safer and just safe for all kinds of stakeholders, all kinds of users. And that itself is very closely related to sustainable urban mobility. And that can be achieved through street design. So basically, when we are looking at streets, we want our streets to be more equitable, more safe, more people friendly. So those are the three areas which are like very closely interlinked. Another area that we are working on is air pollution. Again, it's very easy to see air pollution from the perspective of vehicles, because in all urban areas, vehicular emissions are a major source of air pollution. But the way we are looking at it at Parisar is more holistic. We are not just saying that we look only at vehicles, but we are looking at all the linkages that air pollution has, be it construction, be it waste management, and so on. And the last area of work which has been added very recently, and which coincidentally is also the topic of today's lecture, is plastic. We've just started. It's a very small sort of a way in which we've started, and it is focused more on the just transition from plastic to non-plastic alternatives. So I think these are the areas of, these are the thematic areas in which Parisar is working. And I'd like to hand over the mic to now Vijay sir, who will tell us more about Parisar and its inception.
नमस्कार सगळ्यांना. मला काय म्हणायचं ते सुरुवात करण्यापूर्वी एक छोटीशी गोष्ट आपण नेहमीप्रमाणे करणार आहोत. ती म्हणजे आपल्या आजच्या पाहुण्यांना, जे आज व्याख्याते आहेत, आणखीन आपल्यासमोर त्यांचे मुद्दे मांडणार आहेत, त्यांना एक छोटीशी भेटवस्तू आज आपण देणार आहोत. ती विद्याताई पटवर्धन त्यांना सुपूर्त करतील. Parisar's lectures have been going on in the past for a long time, and as was mentioned, we have resumed that activity now, and we hope to carry on with it in future as well. तर ही जी आजचा प्रोग्राम आहे, हे श्वसाने सांगितल्याप्रमाणे सगळ्यांच्या भेटीगाठी परत व्हाव्यात या दृष्टीने सुद्धा महत्त्वाचं आहे. आणखीन आपण एखाद्या विषयाला हात घालावा. हा नवीन विषय नाही, मोठा विषय आहे, पण जुना पण आहे, पण एका वेगळ्या अंगाने पाहावं या दृष्टीने आज आपण भेटतो आहोत. त्याचबरोबर मी ऐकत होतो आणि श्वेता म्हणाली की आम्ही गेले 30 वर्ष काम करतोय. त्याचा अर्थ की आपल्या म्हणजे काही यातलं यंग स्टाफ जे आहेत ते सुमारे 30 वर्षाचे असतील, 40 वर्षाचे. त्यामुळे त्यांना 30 वर्ष वाचणं बरोबर आहे. तर परिसरची एस्टॅब्लिशमेंट किंवा त्याची सुरुवात सुमारे 42 वर्षापूर्वी झाली. आणि तेव्हा आम्ही काही जण होतो. तर आय कॅन सी रवी भागवत हिअर, आय कॅन ऑफकोर्स सी, अँड यू कॅन ऑल सी विद्याताई पटवर्धन. आणखीन कोण मला दिसतंय का? हां, आणि मीच. असो. तर मुद्दा असा आहे की टाइम फ्लाइज, टाइम्स मूव ऑन, and people change. The new team comes in, and they do excellent work, and they do work which is relevant to the times, relevant to the way in which needs to be done. It needs to be done. So there is no such thing but purvi aso hoto and aaj hoto, etc., etc. All work is good work, and it's relevant at that point of time. ह्या दृष्टिकोनातनं आपण हे सुरुवातीचं काय जे सगळं ऐकलं त्याच्यात आजचे लोकांना भेडसावणारे जे प्रॉब्लेम्स आहेत, रोजच्या रोज सकाळी उठल्यापासून संध्याकाळपर्यंत भेडसावत असतात, आणि त्याच प्रॉब्लेम्सवर काम करणं हे नुसतं रेलेव्हंट म्हणून नाही, त्या प्रॉब्लेमकडनं जगाच्या प्रॉब्लेम्सकडे सुद्धा जात आहेत, आणि तसं जात आहेत. म्हणजे जे विषय, तर उदाहरणार्थ एअर पोल्युशन सर्वव्यापी आहे, सगळीकडे जातो. तेव्हा एअर पोल्युशन असेल किंवा हेल्थ असेल किंवा सेफ्टी असेल वगैरे वगैरे, हे अर्बन आहेत. मी थोडंसं जाणार आहे मागे. आणखीन जेव्हा सुरुवात झाली तेव्हा काय थोडीशी परिस्थिती होती याचं वर्णन करणार आहे. वर्णन म्हणजे डिटेल्ड, मी शिक्षक असल्यामुळे 45 मिनटं नाही, पण एक 10-15 मिनटात पटकन सांगायचा प्रयत्न करतो. Basically, when we started, it was 1980, and things were rather different for obvious reasons. The the Water Act had been passed in 1974. The Forest Conservation Act had been passed in 1980. So just the act had been passed, thinking has just started, and we were wondering, few of us, a dozen of us probably, how to take this forward, how to make people feel that this is a part of their daily matter, of daily question, how it is a part not just of us, but of the entire world, how it is connected to the rest of the world. Is it connected with development strategy, development styles, living styles, development paradigm, and so on? आणि अशा विचारामधनं आम्ही ठरवलं की परिसर संरक्षण आणि संवर्धन संस्था, ह्याचं पूर्ण नाव नुसतंच परिसर नाही आहे, तर संरक्षण आणि संवर्धन संस्था इज दी बेसिक ऑब्जेक्टिव्ह, प्रोटेक्शन अँड कॉन्झर्वेशन. प्रोटेक्शन अँड कॉन्झर्वेशन have a very wide connotation which I will not go into. This was started on the 5th of June, incidentally. 5th of June is the World Environment Day, and it was probably the 8th or 9th World Environment Day at that time. I don't quite remember. But yes, the World Environment Day hadn't become as popular as it is today. And on this day, we decided that it should be formally registered. From 1980-81 to 1986 was a slow evolutionary period during which we moved from being informally associated, inviting people to give talks, inviting discussions and making them happen, inviting all our friends, not just our friends, but even those who didn't quite agree with us. And that was the whole focus at that time. The shared concern at that time amongst those who thought about it and started working on it was environment degradation of various kinds. So the statement of shared concern, if you would wish to call it, was concerned mainly with these two things at that time. Two acts had been passed. 1980 Forest Conservation Act. A huge amount of forest lopping was taking place, and almost 2 to 2.5 million hectares had been chopped off, knocked out, and merely the forest merely the forest policy was not sufficient. So, along with the forest went away a lot of biological diversity or species of different kinds, which had not been recognized. They were not big game, they were not attractive, and yet they were becoming extinct. All this may sound very familiar to you today in 2023, but and in those days this was not very well known. So extinction of species, especially the diversity in India, was a matter of concern. Besides that, there were two issues which were we were facing very strongly. One was soil. Soils are getting bad. Between 60, 65 to 75, 80, 75 or so, the green revolution had happened. And this green revolution meant a lot of poisoning of the soils and air, changing ways of farming, mechanization, and so on. So, this was also a matter of concern. While food security had been achieved, lands had become not completely, but degraded. At that time, we felt, oh, it's all getting lost. We also had a lot of industrialization, which led to urbanization, naturally. So, urbanization, industrialization on one hand, pollution of air on the other, rivers, tanks, lakes, water bodies disappearing all of a sudden on the other hand. And simultaneously, there was, of course, the problem which was related to atomic energy. While it was considered what I would call a panacea for a lot of problems related to energy, it was not really so, is what scientists were talking about. We had to start somewhere. So we naturally started with the first lecture. I'll go according to the lectures that will give us our evolution as well. Our evolution means not Darwinian as you would normally describe. I'm talking about the evolution of our organization or how it changed and moved further. So we first invited Dr. V.D. Varta, who at that time was a biologist, a taxonomist, and a person of great eminence who had worked on species diversity and its extinction. So Dr. V.D. Vartak in 1980 was the first Parisar annual lecture that we had. This may be interesting for even those who have been Parisar for some years, but may not have quite known how it all started or what actually happened. The two principles which we worked on were decided in advance. One principle which we accepted we would always follow would be the principle of equity, development, sustainable or otherwise, for the people. Pro-people development was more popular a term than sustainable development, which came later. So, Chirasthai Arthik Vikas, which became a key phrase later, used to be called pro-people development. सामाजिक स्थैर्य जनी निर्माण होतं, सामाजिक न्याय जनी निर्माण होतो, अशा प्रकारचा विकास, चिरस्थायी विकास, was one important pillar of nature and the human race. So this became one principle, and the other was nature itself. Protection and conservation of nature, not in thin air. While the population was growing, how it could be made more and more just, how it could be made more and more equitable was the matter of concern, was the matter. And then came, or that's the reason why the second lecture or a second stream of thought came through Dr. Madhav Gadgil. You must have heard of him. I don't think he has anything to do with the current modern Mr. Gadgil, who's in charge of Parisar at the moment and its functioning. But Madhav Gadgil and Ramchandra Guha were two people who were historians and who thought about the environment, and they were really thinking about the larger issues, the larger canvas, the historical framework, and they presented the views on sustainable development in a fashion which could be understood by all of us. So all this thought had to be taken to the people. Merely discussing it amongst ourselves was not sufficient. So we thought of Parisar Varta. Why Parisar Varta? Because ही वार्ता कोणी सांगत नव्हतं. पेपरात रोजच्या रोज याबद्दल काही येत नसे. ही मात्र सुमारे 86 साली, after a few years after we had thought and functioned and printed articles and chapters and not chapters, I'm sorry, guest lectures and so on, and distributed them, had discussions around them, came Parisar Varta, आणि ती मराठीत ठेवायची असा एक निर्णय झाला त्यावेळेचा. आणि मग त्यावेळेला रवी भागवत जे इथे आपल्यात बसलेत ते, आणखीन कधी कधी गेस्ट एडिटर्स म्हणून विद्याताई स्वतः किंवा विद्युत भागवत आणि इतरही काही त्याच्यात भाग घ्यायचे आणि हे परिसर वार्ता चालू राहायची. This was a periodical, probably the only periodical in those times, completely devoted to the environment and nature. Nature, man and environment. This was the subject of Parisar Varta. Parisar, as you found, is not just the small Parisar that is around us, but everything around us interacting with us and we interacting with the rest of the world in which this relationship is developed was the larger, bigger canvas of Parisar. So with this, human and nature, nowadays I don't say man and nature, I say human and nature relationship was established and understood in terms of the broader canvas of development. Sujit Patwardhan's role at that time came through Mudra. Mudra was a printing press he was running. He was a thinker in his own right, a designer. So another important speaker who's been in Pune and given a lecture was Masanobu Fukuoka, of whom everybody must have heard. Now you can imagine that we invited this gentleman from all the way from Japan, brought him here, he gave a lecture, stayed with Vidya, right? For a day or two, and shared his time. And at that time, this was not unusual. People did go and they did spend a lot of time. Time was not such an impossible thing. And of course, Mr. Fukuoka himself was a kind of person, a thinker, a philosopher, who would consider time very differently. And for him, spending time for the right things was very useful. It didn't matter how long. So Fukuoka's book became the next important element around which Parisar worked. Not just that we translated it into Marathi. The book was sold over the last maybe 15-20 years, and 10 editions of it were printed. You can imagine Fukuoka's book on organic farming, on natural farming, on his experiences with lands and being talked about, being spoken, being read, being discussed in India. So it was not just through his passion for the environment, but also his ability to put it into a design which would be attractive and presented to the people in a manner that would attract people to that subject. This was also a part of, you can add that the next time you introduce him. These 10 lectures or 12 lectures which I remember, there were at least 18 or 20 lectures which I can remember, but I can't go through all of them. Each one of them is a personality. I'll just mention some of them. Parisar Varta, in addition to its regular periodic publication, also published these lectures in toto. The entire lecture was printed and distributed or sold. Some of them, for instance, Vandana Shiva. Now you know why we must have called her. After Fukuoka, one of the Indian scientists who thought deeply, not just deep ecology, but deep nature, deep thinking. She was a scientist, still is a very important figure in India. Uh, she came and delivered a lecture on various aspects of agriculture, science, technology, and the way we can do it in a sustainable manner. Vandana Shiva and Anil Agarwal, the person who started the Center for Science and Environment in Delhi around 1980, probably the same time as, or just a little before. And Down to Earth was the title. And he spoke not just about down to earth, but the larger paradigm of development and environmental sustainability. We had Ramchandra Guha, I've already mentioned. Darrell De Monte. He was a person who was a journalist and still looked at environmental problems through the lens of a naturalist. He was not himself a naturalist, but he looked at the way in which development was taking place in Mumbai. He is from Mumbai and wrote about dams, for instance, which was not his subject, and many other things. As a journalist, he was supporting many campaigns, he was supporting many discussions, and so on. Bittu Sehgal, a pure wildlifer at that time, known purely as a wildlifer, he came and gave us a wonderful talk, a lecture, and for him, nature was first. For us too, but for him definitely, because his magazines contained the beauty of nature. And we also wanted to show our Puneri people that, look, it's not just about disasters and pollution and air pollution and so on. It's about the beauty in nature itself, which for some time people thought was something to be not so important. Hey, aple konitari Srimantachi thirayet. This is the way Vidya often described it. This is how people thought about environment in those days. Not something for the poor, not something for the social, for the society in general. But one of the things which we tried to do very seriously and with great effort and dedication was to make environment people friendly and make them realize that this is a brass tacks issue for all people, not just for the few who went and saw birds or saved tigers and so on. Bittu Sehgal in that way made things easy for us to understand because he had that realization. People like L.C. Jain and so many others, I won't go through the whole lot, it would take a lot of time. This will probably give you the kind of breadth or the kind of thought that went into or went along with what Parisar as an organization was trying to do. I wouldn't say it completely succeeded, but it succeeded in changing, in my opinion, the mindsets of people into thinking that this is an important subject. This is of concern to us, whether we are looking at the river, Pune's development, whatever development, then environment must be an important segment and part of it. With that, I come to another lecture which I felt was the seed which grew into the current mobility problems in Pune. This was a lecture by Enrique Penaloza. And you might wonder who this Latin-sounding guy is. In 1998, 99 and 2001, he was world-renowned not for being the mayor of Bogota, but for stating that in a city like Bogota, bus transport could be the main mode of transportation. Cheap, state-of-the-art, world-class, education, world-class, health and so on, world-class. But he wanted this to be world-class for the common people of Bogota, for a third world country, not for Sweden. This was in Bogota, South America, Latin America. And I will read a clause or a quote which I thought was quite telling even that time, and it's still telling. He said, and I quote, "A developed country is not a place where the poor have cars. It's where the rich use public transportation." It was something which sparked a lot of discussion even in Pune. I think it was Benjamin who was the commissioner in Pune at that time. Or was it Bhatia? Either Bhatia or one of these. And we had this annual lecture at Bal Gandharva Rang Mandir, and it was very well received because that is the time when BRT and all this mass transportation, which had never been thought of earlier, became important things. And this, in my opinion, was the reason why the 2006 National Policy on Urban Transportation from Delhi, Indian government, this was one of the reasons why it must have happened, because this clause is used in that policy. So I'm sure that Penalosa had that kind of an impact. I was just reading a couple of days ago and I find that the same Penalosa guy has been re-elected in 2016 to 1919. So after 20 years, Penalosa was again elected in Bogota, in Colombia, and he became popular, not because he took the country to the top level of European standards, but because he took development to the people. I'll now turn to Vinod Bodhankar, an old acquaintance, friend, close friend of mine. He gave up his job as an IT professional, and he was working with Medinova. And he said, "This is enough of this IT stuff." And he started what is called Vishwa Sanskriti Ashram at Tulapur. I'm sure many of you have either gone to Tulapur or to Alandi for the obvious reasons. But the reason why he went there was to start this ashram. So he has this third element. One is sustainability, environmental sustainability, people's justice or social justice. And now the spiritual element. Unless your mind understands what's going on, unless your spirit is with it, none of these things can happen. And I'm sure he'll demonstrate it in his presentation as well. So he was thinking about Vishwa Sanskriti in 1988, not from the purely religious or ethical or theological point of view, but also as a person living on earth, doing his normal stuff, and then being a teacher. He was a teacher and he taught Kundalini Yoga and Reiki, things which we have heard of but don't understand too well. And he was influenced by sociologists like Verrier Elwin and many others whom I won't mention. In 2011, that's about 21 years ago, Vinod Bodhankar started an activity or a movement through an institution, and it was called Sagar Mitra. And people were wondering why Sagar Mitra. That is explained by his little clause which he adds, because that time the word think globally, act locally was very popular. He changed that. He said think personally. Act personally, think globally. So personally became a key and important issue. He has written many books. Some of this, Jidnyasa Ek Shodh, an important book. But this was about Ganesha. But this book was not only Ganesha, it was a scientific search into why and how of Ganesha. The pamphlet which is circulated to you through email explains a lot of other things, but I'll just quickly run through some of the other stuff. Jala Biradari, which is now very active in river conservation, knowing your river, Chala Januya Apल्या Nadila activity, he has been an important fulcrum around this activity as well. he sort of moves from all levels to all levels. So, World Commission on Droughts and Famines, he is invited because he has a worldview. Yashoda National Water Academy, he gives lectures to IAS officers and other government servants as well as general public on the importance of wetlands, rivers, and how to conserve and sort of protect it. He has also done a lot of work with languages and with tribal people. And you'll be surprised to know that he speaks English, Marathi, Hindi, Madia, Korku, and Pauri. Madia, huh?
The tribal part is about my father.
Because he mentioned that he traveled with his father, and he traveled in areas where he got what he now describes as his personal sensitivity. Finally, I would say that he is a great communicator. I hope you will experience that in the next hour or so. There's one link between Sujit, I, and Vinod, and the other Parisar Parivar, which is about which happened sometime in 1991. I don't remember exact year, but the Earth Day was being celebrated. This was something which has been, so besides the World Environment Day, there is the Earth Day, April, what is it?
1990.
April 90.
22nd.
22nd April 90. At that time, many of us got together and celebrated this day. This was not for water or pollution or plastics or this and that. Earth Day. The whole earth and existence. So this is the breadth or the canvas which Vinod has traversed. And he moves to all levels and between all levels. For instance, he speaks to politicians which are senior in Sweden or Morocco, US, and he can also speak with very fluently and very intelligently, because you need a lot of intelligence to talk to little children. To school children, from little school children, he explains his viewpoints, not his viewpoints, the world view that he has on all these matters. I feel that I have tried to give a glimpse into his life. I will now invite Vinod to say his piece.
The talk is in honor of Sujit Patwardhan. And I don't see people as this subject or that subject. I cannot. I'm incapable of doing that. Finally, every human being is a living being, and so the subject that the person lives is life. And I'm a student of life. All the subsets are very small threads. जैसे कबीर जी कहते हैं कि कई धागे हैं तो उसकी चदरियाँ बनती हैं. वैसे अनकाउंटेड स्पीशीज है, उसमें ह्यूमन बीइंग एक धागा है, एक धागा. अनकाउंटेड स्पीशीज और एक धागा, जो धागे के जैसे जीना नहीं चाहता. There is something which disturbs us from inside. We call it the rat race. And people run after that. Small aims, fragmented aims. And some of us, like Sujit, decide to live life. As the young lady who was speaking in the beginning said, ki, take your time and live life. There might be an emergency, say नहीं चाय पियेंगे पहले, वो emergency तो रहे. जियो यार. तो जी के जो जीते हैं वो समय लेके जीते हैं. उनके पास 24 घंटे से ज़्यादा समय होता है. One of them is Sujit. I look at him as an elder brother just because of the accident of a few years of age. A colleague, a peer, one whose voice I hear, the pitch of that voice is like a bell. Only when people live genuinely, their voice carries like a bell. परावाणी कहते हैं उसको. जहाँ वो जीता है वहाँ से बात करता है, ऑथोरिटी से बात करता है, क्योंकि जो विटनेस किया है वो बोल देता है. Very transparent. How can I speak without remembering him because this is in his memory. So I take this as a celebration of life. And all the subjects which Parisar was listing, I was writing those names down. Each of them has lived life in a magnificent way. I'm proud to be a human being that such people walk the earth. I am an incurable romanticist. I see an infinite possibility in goodness possible on the planet. In this context, let us come to the talk. I will give me a minute to maneuver to the first slide and I will start. I'm very deeply privileged to be here. Parisar has been an inspiration. The subject, of course, is plastic waste management, personal to global perspective. I had a long talk with Vijay Parisar over the last few days, and he said, do go into the elementary part of what is plastic also. Normally, something which we don't talk about. In our talks also, we go into the problems caused by plastic actually. So I took the effort in the last couple of days, and I'm myself enlightened about plastic further than I have been before. This talk is based on 12 years of experience. It's a field experience. What I was doing as a member of a group, which is Sagar Mitra family, it's not just about myself. I represent that group when I stand there. Was visiting schools, housing societies, institutions, which can be a corporate institution also, any bar association, you name it. Any kind of institution where people sit together. Villages for Sagar Gram, these are versions of Sagar Mitra. And cities where directly the meeting is with the commissioner for Sagar Nagri. And the word Sagar is common to those meetings. For 12 years, these meetings have been going on. What was the subject? It is people's participation in plastic waste management. Apparently, it seems to be only about plastic, but it's about life. There are people who use plastic, don't think about it, don't think about life on the planet, don't think about the life support systems and cycles, don't think about the Panchamahabhutas, what happens to them when you throw plastic. And they happily throw the plastic. This is one kind of human being. And there is a contemplative one who says, they taught me in school that a living being is alert and responds to stimulus. And some people are alert that plastic destroys and they are dead to the stimulus. He's not living. For God's sake, he's not living. And people like me take these things very viscerally. Right down to ज़हन तक हमारे वजूद तक जाता है. हमारे सेकंड टू सेकंड जो वर्ल्ड व्यू है, जहाँ से हर एक डिसीजन आता है, वहाँ तक हम ये ले लेते हैं कि जिंदा है क्या मरे हुए हैं. पता है कि प्लास्टिक फेंकने से कुछ होता है, स्पीशीज मरते हैं, अब तक हाथ नहीं रुका. तो ये जो नॉलेज को अप्लाई करता है लाइफ में और जो नॉलेज को अप्लाई नहीं करता, इसको हम अप्लाइड लिविंग का कोर्स कहते हैं. सागर मित्र becomes a course in applied living. So there is a 12-year experience in that. Who are the people who are willing to participate in applying the knowledge which they get? These talks led to decentralized, community-driven projects, movements, decentralized, community-driven, where every individual saw only themselves as responding to the global crisis, or one aspect of it. But it so happened that the framework in which they were invited, they landed up acting as teams. The framework or the environment which is given to them in order to respond individually is created in such a way that they respond as a team. Within that team, for the same period, 2011 to 2023, 12-year period. So there's a study of how we place a worldview before people, and there's a study of 4 things. Waste plastic related awareness presentations. Then the decentralized physical segregation of waste plastic. अपने अपने घर में, अपने अपने institution में. When they hear our talk, that's what they do. Even the 5th standard children. The slideshow for the 5th standard children and the IS officers is the same slides. Actually, for any audience, it is the same slides. Waste plastic city level aggregation and sorting, not by the government, but by whoever exists in a city who's doing this. Might be a rag picker, might be the corner raddiwala, might be the fellow with a warehouse who takes from all these raddiwalas the plastic. So what is the natural system right now in a city where plastic is being aggregated and sorted? Who are employed there? What is the livelihood situation there? Is that growing? And waste plastic, decentralized recycling, in which India is very good. I'm not going to go into all the details. This is just to place before you that this is about a field experience and meeting the people daily. We have an office where I haven't gone for 2 years, I think. I haven't gone inside the office for 2 years now. Null stop office. So let's start with something very basic. I don't normally go into this, but Vijay Paranspeji said ki, nahi, plastic manje काय हे पण सांग. Let's go in that way. How did it grow into something fantastic, a miracle for humanity? We'll see that. It's not bad, it's not the monster. How did it become a miracle for humanity? How did we put in all our effort into buying it and supporting the industry? Because of the very nature of that thing. Here is Alexander Parks, 1862. He took a bit of cellulose, heated it, and found that it is pliable. उसको कुछ भी shape दे सकते हैं. And the word plastic comes from that pliability. When that cellulose was heated under certain circumstances, it was cellulose nitrate. He found it was pliable, and then when it cooled down, whatever shape he had given it, it would stay in that shape as a hard plastic. What a fantastic thing. You can make a hook and catch fish with it. You can make a cage and keep a bird in it. You can make a rope and tug a car with it. If you have enough of it. You can shape it into anything. 1862. I think that's the beginning and end of the name plastic. It's pliable. He heated the cellulose. It was pliable, and that's why the word plastic comes from. And that's the first piece. It hardened. And he also saw that it was partly transparent at places. So here is something I get from nature. I'm heating it, giving it whatever shape I want. And so what are the shapes that during his time he gave them? Combs, picture frames. What else will he? Snooker balls, buttons, knife handles. When we met just now, Vijay Paranspeji was saying to me, I just remembered that my buttons are made of plastic. Starts there. He made the buttons also. Here's a snooker ball from that time. It's in the Museum of Plastics. Hard enough that you can play snooker with it. As hard as ivory. Because the original snooker balls are ivory balls. So this is in short. Very easily, always we try to create slides which 5th standard children can understand. Because that's where our dialogue with society begins. Because they're the smartest of the lot on the planet. I very rarely have text on my slides. But because of, we want to know what this plastic is. I'm not going to go through all of that, just the names, because you will know the names. Cellophane, bakelite, PVC, polyvinyl chloride. Saran, it became saran wrap, eventually, the wrap which we use in kitchen. Then low density polyethylene or LDPE, acrylic, polyurethanes, polystyrene. There are 2 types of polystyrenes. One becomes styrofoam and the other becomes thermocol. Entirely different things. One is extruded and the other is expanded. Different things. Nylon and neoprene and PET is the bottle that we use. And then on the other side you have polyester, which was sort of, they said it promises to replace silk, which it can never do. And we had high density polyethylene also. Polypropylene, saran wrap, styrofoam, polyamides, and at the last you will find liquid crystal polymers. So we come up to LCDs, liquid crystal displays. Liquid crystal displays, we are using them in calculators, televisions, medical instrumentation, and they're very harmful, hazardous. The screen in front of me is possibly a liquid crystal display using plastics, which shape themselves according to, if you give it a tap, it will shape itself in a color. You give it another tap from here, it shapes itself. Wonderful. But this is continuously releasing some volatile substances which we breathe also. I'm not going into the detail of that. But when we see the wide variety of plastics, they are so different from each other: apple, orange, pumpkin, brinjal. Then you have steel somewhere. Very different, but they have one thing in common, that they are made up of monomers and chains of monomers. These are the products which are made from the plastics. This is part of what we show the school students. Now we come into monomers and polymers. No need to read all of that. We'll place it in pictures. This is the most common monomer. It's a molecule. Please notice that the two carbon atoms have two bridges between them. And on the right is what is called as a polymer. It's difficult to tell you what that is. But in nature, what happens in a... You see this, please, very carefully. These are two black ones with a double bridge, and they change it to a single bridge. This is something which happens. You know, मैं यहाँ आके बोलता हूँ, नौरा भाई को फुगड़ी खेलता है, holding both hands, the two carbon atoms. And a new carbon comes, and the fellow reaches out with one hand to the other one, because he's got two hands to hold. But then you see his partner has one hand free now. So that holds on to another carbon atom. And this way the chain is potentially infinite. So from a monomer you get a polymer chain. Now when two chains come together, you get a sheet. And when you put sheets together, you get a block. That's the beginning and end of all plastic production. So you just have to understand that the way in which some chemicals are arranged, these monomers, even if they come near each other, they will link into chains. Just because of the valencies that they have, and they will hold hands in a different way and fulfill their valencies. Human beings have found out a way to force this space and to force certain qualities onto this, and so there are huge number of polymers. Monomers are when they are separate, and these are separate monomers. And when they join, it becomes an infinite chain. All chains together make a sheet. It's one molecule. That's why air doesn't go through and water doesn't go through. Please understand the plastic sheet as a single molecule. It's an amazing discovery, which is forced by human beings as a sort of evolution. These things were happening on their own. There are plastic substances in nature, but we force the pace. That's how that looks. Like beads. And this is what it creates. That's our experience. That is low density polyethylene, and this is high density polyethylene. These are the shampoo bottles and so on. There are many variants of plastic. There's a Teflon which even will stop a bullet. Okay. And there is such a soft plastic that they fool us into believing it is cotton diaper for the child. They fool us successfully into believing it is cotton, though it's harmful for the child. इतकं सॉफ्ट करतात त्याला. ते डॅमॅस्कच्या पेक्षा सॉफ्ट असतं. So this is just to give you an idea of the chemistry of plastics. It's very complex. It takes more than a lifetime to catch up with it. But this is the layperson's. Parisar sir, you said this is essential. And it was an essential learning for me also. Now plastic is a miracle product. Let's get out of the chemistry class. It is light. Think about the plastics when I say this. It's durable. It's impermeable. It's transparent, it's flexible, it has a multicolorability, it has an affinity with permacolors. You can take up many colors as you want. It's low cost, high volume production. It is a low cost, high volume transport. It's low cost, high volume storage. And it is low cost, high volume, any shape, any consistency, any hardness, any softness. So it's a miracle product. It can almost be anything. So there are 4 things which happened to humanity. First, this was an unexpected bonus for the main multinational producers like Texaco, Aramco. Who produces this? Those who have carbon and hydrogen in abundance in the waste material of their primary product, which is petroleum. They take out the crude oil, they take out the aviation fuel, the diesel, the petrol, naphtha. They take out so many components for even fertilizer, and then there is some tar left, dambar. And they did not know what to do with it. There used to be lakes of that, tar lakes. Athabasca tar lake, massive tar deposit. And they found that you can catch the carbon and hydrogen from here. And carbon, hydrogen and oxygen make the best monomers. And so that waste material was encashed. As a result, today, by 1960, these companies have already invested, already got the loans, already put in the production units. We can't stop them right now. Plastic is going to become worse for us before it becomes better. And they are going to increase the production of plastic 3-fold, 3 times. So I deliberately got an example to show you. Here is a Mentos. It used to come in a tin with hundreds of Mentos in it. Now each of them will have a plastic around it. Now each biscuit is going to have plastic around it because they have been told that with the food sell the plastic. Because make the plastic, because there's waste material through which the plastic is made. Billions of dollars. So when we try to think about how to stop this, we have to go deep down into what is the ability to live applied life. I can see what I'm producing is harmful and I'm still selling it. So what is it that makes the human being who cares, and what is it that makes the human being who doesn't care? This was a miracle product for all industries of all products, including packaging products, because you have something which can shape itself into anything. A cheaper replacement. It can become a screw also. It became a profitable product for all traders, wholesale and retail. That's why it got the support. And for us, a daily and easy convenience product, you ask anybody who goes to buy fruit, not carrying a bag, that fellow gives a bag, it's convenient. Became the ultimate convenience. And therefore the production increased because we kept on using it and kept on using it and kept on using it. These are the subjects related to plastic. I'm just going to read. I'm not going to go through the details of each, but it's necessary to read that. Plastic production, plastic use, plastic life cycle, waste per country, per capita, who are the worst polluters, sources of the plastic soup in the ocean, ingredients of that plastic soup, microplastics on the land, plastic and health, and plastic and climate. How do you talk about all of this with children? Without saying any of this, without showing the slide. This is of course a theoretical kind of show. You'll have to read how many years, how much the plastic is growing. It's easier to show the second slide to show you how plastic is being manufactured at a breakneck pace. You see, that's how it's going now. We are somewhere near 2020, 3 years into this pink area. Out of the total plastic manufactured till now, 56% has been manufactured between 2000 and 2020. Earlier, half took 40 years. Now in 20 years, we have manufactured the same. Now in 10 years, we will manufacture the same. In 5 years, we will manufacture the same. So that by 2050, every year we will be manufacturing so much about 1,500 million tons every year. This is thrice the weight of the human population. 2050, if we have 8 billion people, the weight of 24 billion people, that much plastic we will manufacture in that year. And the plastic occupies more space. So if I am suppose 90 kgs of plastic will occupy a huge space. A sack of plastic of this size will be only 2.5 kilos. So the reason for pointing all of this out, we must see, if I am a general, I should say to my scouts, tell me the whole army and whatever they have. Don't tell me this platoon and that platoon. Tell me the whole thing. How can I fight blind? He says, no, but they have too many weapons. Of course, you have to tell me that. So when you put up a table and say the buck stops here, then you start looking at the widest view. Because unless we look at the wide view, we are not doing what is called as living, alertness to life, and responding accordingly. It's like trying to live in a traffic where we say, I won't look at the trucks, they're too dangerous. So blank out the trucks from my windscreen. You can't do that. So let's be alert to this. Before I come to Sagar Mitra and what we do with the children, a couple of slides more. To place the context before you of the magnitude of plastic which is being manufactured, I've already said. I'm not going to read all of this. You can see prostate cancer is there. Children being born underweight is there. It's dangerous. It's dangerous. Plastic is being changed into nanoparticles. 90% of our paint is acrylic, so all the time nanoparticles are falling down. 86% of our clothes are polymers, so you do this and nanoparticles fall down. We are breathing them, they're already in our blood. And the nanoparticles cross the blood-brain barrier. The blood-brain barrier is to protect our brain. Over millions of years, it has been created by nature. It stops most of the viruses and it stops most of the bacteria. But this barrier doesn't know what this thing is. Nanoparticle of plastic, what is it? Just doesn't know. We forced an evolution upon these structures. We forced it. The rest of life couldn't catch up with it. These are the reasons why we feel, I don't see this as conclusive reasons, we feel it's difficult to reach people. People are ignorant and they are disinterested in learning new things, or they have a very small span of attention. The second part is the media consumes that human resource called the thinking mind, 99% with rubbish. There's an indiscipline which results. By indiscipline, I don't mean that they don't follow the rules which are there. What I mean is they do not learn their self-discipline of living. If I'm alert to something, I have to respond to it. So this is called lack of applied living. Taking my own view of the nature and deciding my own adaptations, whether the people come or not. When it becomes law from government and then I follow it, वो भीड़ के साथ बदलता है. खुद ब खुद बदलता है तो यम नियम जिसको कहते हैं, Yama is the Sanyam, the first part of yoga. And Sanyam means that I will change because I know it is a problem for the nature. So मेरा संयम मैं खुद कर लेता हूँ. बाकी के भीड़ के साथ आएंगे, उनके ऊपर नियम आने के बाद आएंगे. Niyam comes when Sanyam fails. And there's a resulting serious and crippling disconnect between people and the governing institutions. These are the challenges, but we don't feel that this will last because there is a ray of hope here. What do we want? We want individuals self-initiated, willing, intensely motivated participation in local to global decision-making processes. All of you are very experienced. I think just reading this line also, you get what I'm trying to say. We need people who will be part of the team that we are a part of. We need more and more of them who will come in willingly, who will be ready to understand local to global issues and how they telescope into each other. So where do we find this? Yes, we can find them. So we put a case history before you of where are we finding the volunteers who are ready to change into applied living. It's a very interesting case history. Started with 150 high school children in Hadapsar, Vidya Bhavan, and today there are 1,72,000 children in daily action. And they do it with a global perspective, knowingly and willingly participate in some daily activity, and it has become a part of their samskar and their sanskriti. So can we actually have human beings who grow up as youngsters from our existing schools? No need to have Rishi Valley school. Existing school, corporation school. Existing schools in my 195, 197 countries. Can we put in an input whereby we can have a team of billions of children who transcend their nation, who transcend their spiritual or religious identity and become part of a team for the ocean? Because the ocean is larger than the nation. And the ocean is larger than any religious group which is there. And none of these, either Hinduism or Islam or Christianity or India or Pakistan or America, none of them are creating a budget for taking care of the oceans. They've drawn the map wrong. The map is drawn only as the land with the water body inside, as though the rain doesn't come from outside. So now even 5th standard children, when we tell them, in the last 8,000 years we failed to define the nation as our guide to everyday living, applied living. And we say my nation plus blue nation is equal to true nation. Draw the map of India, whatever is the water bodies inside and whatever are the water bodies outside. Please draw it like that. We have housing society talks in which children come and say, sir, this is the best. I can tell you what I remember from what you said. So we say, what? He says, I'm in 7th standard. So what did you remember? My nation plus blue nation is equal to true nation. They are calling the ocean as the blue nation. So now here we have a two nation talk with the children, a narrative. Now how do we place this talk before them? I have to acknowledge, Cummins India Foundation, CSR group which supports us for the last 10 years, Jal Biradari, Pune and Pimpri Chinchwad Mahanagar Palika, you will see how they are coming in into this model, not a garbage collection model. It's not a garbage collection model. With the use of plastic and handling plastic, because it affects the ocean, not Gully to Delhi. Not for a national perspective, but for a blue nation perspective. So Sagar Mitra, let us go towards that. I'm glad that this talk is being revived and Sujit comes to mind over here. As I said in the beginning, he lived his life. I can see him as a person who lived life passionately. At ease, which is how masters do. सारी छुट्टियां भी लेने हैं पर जो काम करना है वो पूरे नेकी से करना है. So with him here, we trust, Sujit, you are listening through us because what you showed us lives in us. Then I take your permission to actually show you what we show the 5th standard children. Our age group is 5th standard to 12th standard. Please remember it is 8 years. 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th. 8 years में 1 billion बच्चे हैं अभी पृथ्वी पर. 8 साल में ये आगे निकल जाएंगे. 8 iterations of that and they repopulate the earth. We will not be there. So we are looking at that. Change the syllabus and you shift these kids up, and the single thing we have to put into their minds is Sagar Mitra. The more complicated thing is my nation plus blue nation is equal to true nation. So we say to the children that these are the minds of those 1 billion children. In 8 years, from 5th to 12th, they are there and they will shift. They are part of our team because they are equipped with a mind. Forgive me for pointing out a brain as a mind, it is not. If the internet is the mind, then my terminal on which I access the internet is the brain. It's a very small thing. The brain is a very small thing on consciousness. It's like the terminal on which you have an access to the cosmic mind. They have this equipment. And we just want to place this picture there. And to our surprise and delight, it's already there in their minds. All the teachers have already shown them this. There is no school which doesn't have a globe. The only blind spot is that the children are focused on only the terrestrial part of this planet. And when they say think globally, act locally, or think globally, act personally, they have nothing about the ocean inside their minds and hearts. As a result, we just don't know that about 70% of the greenery is in the ocean. Just today I read about a single organism, Dichlorococcus, single organism in the ocean. As the name says, chloro. It has chlorophyll in it. This single organism gives 20% of the oxygen to the planet. Every 5th breath. Every 5th breath. So the children are amazed. There is a forest which is terrestrial, static, and there is a forest which is floating. There is a forest which is visible, which gives 30% of oxygen, and there is an invisible forest. You have to take a drop of water and see in an electron microscope to see the real greenery in the ocean, which we show in slides. So we missed out on 70% of the greenery. We say save the trees, and we say think globally, but 70% of the greenery is not there in thinking. The planet is shown, but the balanced view of what is the ocean and what is the land and what is the importance of the ocean, it is 70% important. For God's sake, this ocean gives us 100% of the rain, the snow, the rain. Only a very small part comes from the ground. And scientists have disputes over that, whether the ocean gives us 50% of the oxygen or 70%. In my reading and study of all the research which is going on, I am tilting towards 70%. Because just one creature is giving 20%. Just one creature. And I also learned in the last few days that the sunlight goes down up to 200 meters. And there are red colored vegetation at that level, which give oxygen also. So up to 200 meters वो जंगल है जहाँ से ऑक्सीजन मिलता है समंदर का. We had 150 students who were given this idea that because of the plastic we throw, that jungle is dying. And will you save it? We started with 150 children in 2011. Now this is a case study, physical report about what happened. Children being told that they have to save the ocean. What did they do? I'll just show you what they did. After they listened to a talk, they just went home. They took a plastic bag at home. And they were told कि राजकुमार और राजकुमारी केवल घर का ड्राई प्लास्टिक, क्लीन प्लास्टिक बैग में रखेंगे. Exactly the way we keep newspaper रद्दी. Clean newspaper, dry newspaper. गीला newspaper नहीं रखते उधर. तो we just said कि प्लास्टिक रद्दी मॉडल है, 150 children just put in the bag. खबरदार घर के बाहर का उठाओगे तो. राजकुमार और राजकुमारी आपके संस्कार के लिए हैं, तो केवल और केवल क्लीन एंड ड्राई प्लास्टिक घर का बैग में रखो. So they started bringing like that. We met a wonderful company, Clean Garbage Management, which buys this plastic because it's clean and dry. It can directly go to the factory. In 1 year, we had 10,000 students, then 21,000, then 41,000, 2015, 61,000. And the world's topmost research body, which does research of oceans and plastics, Five Guys Institute, Suomoto, they gave an award called Ocean Hero to the children. So the children got to know that 61,000 children fetched in 3 tons of plastic in the year. Only 3 tons. Which would fill up about 2/3 of this room. This would fill up, this would be about 5 tons. They fetched 3 tons and they got an international third party validation. Today in Pune, every week our students and their parents are fetching in 2.5 tons. What they did in the year, this is happening now every week. You'll be amazed when I show you the photographs of what is 10 tons of clean plastic which comes every month to us. Huge. And that we buy. You bring in 20 tons, we'll buy it. You bring in 200 tons, we'll buy it. You bring in 2 million tons, we'll buy it. The extent to which we buy it and recycle it, that much of new plastic, there is no need to take it. It will take some time to set that. Somewhere, some table has to be there where the buck stops and someone says, oh, this plastic can't be recycled, bring it here. The scientists say, oh, देख लेंगे ना यार, ला तो सही. किसी को तो बोलना पड़ेगा ना, साइंटिस्ट बोल रहा है तो ठीक है ना, साइंटिस्ट बैठ जा तू. वो हम देखेंगे जुगाड़ क्या करना है. We'll find the science for it. Because if we don't take up this huge problem, as I'm going to show, our children and their children will be in a mess. So we have to take it up. Firstly, we tell the children, get a steel bottle. Anyone who teaches Sagar Mitra has to carry this, otherwise they don't give the talk. I would have had to go back today without the talk. If I don't do it, I shouldn't speak. This is from 15 days of last month. If I forgot this, I would say sorry to all of you and go. जूता भी खाऊंगा. खुद नहीं करता है तो बोलना नहीं. Period. In spirituality, it's either 0 mark or 100 marks. There's no gray areas. There is no excuse. If you haven't done it, which is called applied living, then you face it. Face it bravely. Face the music. Be ashamed of what you did. So there is an authentic living component in this, which comes from the different spiritual traditions which are there, which we have inbuilt into this for the children. So we have a small village called Bobkhel, the first school where every child has a steel bottle, every child has a steel tiffin. Any child brings plastic, they will wash it and hand it over to Sagar Mitra collection. See, this doesn't mean that everything changes, but this is our attempt to see why are people not ready to change behavior when they know what is the change. Why don't they go into applied life? These are experiments. Here is the plastic that we see. Please remember this clip, it's 0.5 kilometer of plastic. It is near Sangli industrial estate. Behind that is a nala. You can see the greenery on this side and that side, na? Riparian zones. So when it rains, this is going to go into the nala. It's 0.5 kilometer of plastics. The nala was full of tons of plastic. You can see some of it there. I want you to remember this. This is 0.5 kilometer of plastic. Many people will think, my God, this is huge. But when you see the amount which is in the ocean, you will be stunned. This is how the plastic is in my city. And we say to the children that I threw it. If any human being throws it, I am a part of the human species, so I have to stand up first and say I threw it. Because anyone who patli gali se jo निष्ठुन जातो ना जो वो ह्यूमन बीइंग है क्या यार, छोटे दिल से और छोटे दिमाग से जी रहा है. Not owning up to the fact that as a human species, collectively we have failed to have 100% applied living. 100% applied living. We failed in that and we have to learn it. So we say to the children, I am responsible for this. 30% of this goes into the water. 30% is burnt. 30% is in the ground. Spoiling the soil, spoiling the water, spoiling the air. And about 9 to 10% globally is being recycled. The worst at this job are USA and Canada and European Union. I'll tell you how later. Because of Dr. Vishwas Yevle, I wish he comes from one of these talks. Narendra Bhai is here. We have been roaming around on rivers in Pune district. And it so happened that we used to go from Alandi to Pandharpur on these rowing boats. And it's like the plastic is going before you and you are chasing it. It's almost like that. Though we were not really aware of that time. 13 days, 450 kilometers. Within that is Ujni Dharan. In Ujni Dharan, we cannot drink the water. I'm talking about 2003 here. I hope I can play this. You'll see. Just a minute. In Ujni Dharan, which is 240 kilometers long, we could not drink. Okay. So anyway, this shows rowing people. You can imagine that. There are about 40 dams like this, in which we see tons of plastic from Pune. This is 120 kilometers down, where Mulamutha meets the Bhima river. And the few photographs I showed you are in this region. The diameter is 450 kilometers. This is Alandi, Pune, Pandharpur. ज्ञानपीठ से लेकर भक्तिपीठ तक. तो डॉक्टर येवले के साथ हम लोग जलदिंडी 2002 से 2012 तक करते रहे. 2011 में तो सागर मित्र शुरू हो गया. The plastic is going to Bhima river from 11 rivers in Pune district, crossing the Karnataka border, going through northern Karnataka. The plastic goes because of the slope to the river. From all over Karnataka, most of those tributaries, except for the extreme south, are coming towards Krishna. And so Bhima and Krishna meet at the border of Telangana and gathering plastic from these three huge regions, part of Maharashtra, part of Karnataka, part of Telangana and Andhra Pradesh, the plastic is going into the Bay of Bengal. This is the Krishna river basin where we stay, and these are all the other river basins from which the plastic is going here. And then we have to take one jump and see that this is what is happening to the plastic in the ocean. It collects there. I don't know how to reduce this. On the left is a 1 feet layer and on the right is a 2 feet layer of plastic. The thickest layers of plastics in the ocean are 30 feet deep. Looks like 2 feet but is up to 30 feet. They hinkalta. It's not a lump. Up and down it keeps moving. So this is to give you an idea of what happens to the plastic which leaves our hand. Now this is the 5 Marathi mein ukirda kehte. You can see the Indian Ocean, the North and South Pacific, North and South Atlantic. If you see Atlantic from Florida and this eastern coast of USA right up to Morocco and Spain, coast to coast plastic. You see the scale below and you will see the depth given in meters. So you'll see 10 meters deep where it is red. So this is 10 meters deep, the very famous Pacific garbage patch. 2000 kilometers by 800 kilometers. You see, you remember the first movie which I showed you? आधा किलोमीटर प्लास्टिक था, आधा किलोमीटर. ये रेड जो पैच दिख रहा है वो 2000 kilometers by 800 kilometers 30 feet deep हिंदकड़नारा प्लास्टिक. How much is that? What is it doing to the greenery? What is it doing to the greenery over there? So when we see this, we say to the children that please feel responsible because you have not yet gone in for this. You use even a single bottle. The lower part is going to stay for 300 years because only the ultraviolet rays of the sun are going to make it crumble. You keep your bucket on the terrace and see it starts crumbling. But even in the face of sunlight, this lower part will last for 300 years. Means to the school children we say, 5वीं से 6th जाओगे ऐसे 300 बार होगा. तब आपने फेंका हुआ बोतल नैनो पार्टिकल बनने वाला है, मिट्टी नहीं बनती. छोड़ो कि कोई साइंटिस्ट आपको बोलता है मिट्टी बनती है, तो नहीं बनता उसका मिट्टी. प्लास्टिक रहता है नॅनो पार्टिकल. आपण फ्युचर जनरेशनच्या उरावर टाकून जातोय. एक बॉटल घेतली तर आणि ऊपर का जो ढक्कन है वो तो 800 साल रहता. 300 साल पहले तो शिवाजी महाराज थे, 800 साल पहले, 850 साल पहले संत ज्ञानेश्वर, तभी कोई फेंकता तो अभी हमारे सर पे गिरता वो बोतल का टॉप. सो इट्स देयर. Incidentally, we don't have a drone consciousness, so we don't know how it looks. 2000 kilometers by 800 kilometers. It's the size of 6 Maharashtras. 6 महाराष्ट्र एवढा उकिरडा जिथे 30 फुटापर्यंत प्लास्टिक आहे आणि आता 20 वर्षामध्ये आपण डबल करणार आहोत. So let's go ahead a little quickly. We may be under time constraints. Yeah, perfect. So let us remember that 100% water supply comes from the ocean and 70% oxygen supply. And a bottle in 2009, 2019, the same bottle in 2109 will be like this. So we say applied living कहाँ तक आता है ह्यूमन बींग्स को. जिसने ये सुना वो आज से बंद किया क्या बोतल यूज़ करना. तो अप्लाइड लिविंग में तो 0 मार्क्स है ऑलमोस्ट. मैं खुद को दे रहा हूँ 0 मार्क्स. आई एम अ ह्यूमन बीइंग. I may not use it, but that's no big deal. I cannot say in the traffic I am the one who stops at the red light and the rest of the people don't. What kind of a civilization? Either it's 0 marks or 100 marks. So humanity scores almost a 0 on applied living. After knowing this, if they keep using, तो जिंदा है क्या मरा हुआ है? The definition of life is कि alert to the stimulus and responding to the stimulus. तो इतने हम नीचे 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 जाके बधिर हो गए. तो हम बच्चों में देखते हैं कि they become ready to acknowledge this. Become ready to acknowledge this. Now I'll go fast. They become ready that 600 trucks like this are going from Pune or more than that. And these are the mountains of garbage in which 1 kilo of plastic will mix with 150 kilos of wet waste. And because the plastic is there, there is no contact with the air, there is no contact with the moisture, there is no contact with the sunlight. And so an ukirda which would go down in 1 year can take 40 years of rotting. Because the plastic is mixed up and doesn't allow the contact with sunlight. You imagine 1 ton of ola kachra, we are multiplying our problem 40 times by throwing plastic along with it. So we can solve it through a simple device. This is Mithi River, no fish living there. We have to say this to the children. एक पेड़ गिर गया तो हम काउंट नहीं करते कि पत्ते कितने हैं, एक नदी मर गई तो काउंट करते हैं कि कितनी मछली मर गई. तो दिस इज नो लॉन्गर नाउ अ गार्बेज प्रॉब्लम, दिस इज अ प्रॉब्लम ऑफ वायलेंस. So it is the issue is violence or non-violence. This is the chakra view. This was a problem statement. These are the rivers. Indonesia, Philippines, Kerala, Croatia. See, just a 2 feet layer of plastic and the greenery is dead. Fish are dead. Fishermen are catching plastic. The school children are going to draw a river with no fish in it. Already. Mutha river used to have 70 species of fish, now only 2 species are there. Chilapi, mangur, both are not Indian. One is a Thailand catfish, which can live outside for 6 hours. So it survives in all dirty water. And the other one is a carp from the Nile Delta, where the mother carp knows how to take the children inside her mouth. When in the morning we flush Pune, she takes those children away to a spot where there is clean water. And when our flushing is over by 11 o'clock, she again releases into the river. This kind of parenting, Indian fish don't have. So these two, tilapia and the catfish from Thailand, they're still alive. Now I have been told that only tilapia is alive and the catfish is trying to migrate back to Mula river, which is relatively clean. So our rivers are dead. Plastic is one of the very, very important reasons. In the 13-14 minutes remaining to me, I will try to summarize quickly what we show the children, but this slide is the most important. I'll spend 3 minutes on it. This is the greenery of the ocean under electron microscope. The phytoplankton and different creatures. Like the new one that I came to know about, Dichlorococcus. Single creature gives 20% of the oxygen of the planet. Every 5th breath. So they are all chlorophyll bearing. In the night they glow. उनका झुंड 9,000 किलोमीटर रहता है. जैसे कि सितारे ज़मीन पे आते हैं, जैसे आमिर खान कहते हैं तारे ज़मीन पर बच्चों को, ये तो तारे समंदर के हैं. तो they are to be saved not only because our swarth is there to save the oxygen they give, but because it's beautiful. And we throw the plastic back. And the sun tries to get through, and the sun can't do its function. एक उकिरडा 6 महाराष्ट्र एवढा 20-20 फुटाचे लेअर प्लास्टिकचे. You think the sunlight is going down there? I haven't yet met any scientist who's even calculating what's going on. It's a blind spot in our think globally. For God's sake, we are not thinking globally. We have to open a huge dimension. इसलिए सागर मित्र एक की वर्ड्स हो गए उसमें. सागर के बारे में सोचना ही पड़ेगा. This is how they look. Beautiful. And this is their jhund. Everywhere you see the ocean green, that is the phytoplankton. This is a 12-year movie of them. You see, it's a moving forest. It follows the sun to the tropics. Absolutely mind-boggling. The children get fascinated with this. सर एवढं जंगल आहे? हो. सूर्याच्या मागे जातं, मोबाईल जंगल आहे. फॉरेस्ट कॉन्झर्वेटरला विचारा, ह्याच्याबद्दल बजेट काय आहे. मिनिस्टरला विचारा, सगळ्यांना एकत्र बसून विचारा, ह्याचं काय बजेट आहे फॉरेस्टचं. नाही, मग ब्लाइंड स्पॉट मोठा है, मोटा ब्लाइंड स्पॉट है. पहला ब्लाइंड स्पॉट है कि हमें वो नेशन करके दिखता ही नहीं. मैप ही नेशन का झूठा बनाया है. ओनली द इनर वाटर बॉडीज, नॉट द आउटर वाटर बॉडीज. ओनली फ्रॉम वेयर वी टेक, नॉट फ्रॉम वेयर इट एक्चुअली कम्स. This is from Croatia, plastic going into the Mediterranean, and then this is how the children die. They're children actually, children of the earth. मेरे बेटे हैं, मेरी बेटी है, क्योंकि हम उनको ऐसे नहीं देखते फिर हम भीतर से मर गए क्या, ऐसे पूछना तो पड़ेगा, पूछना तो पड़ेगा. देखो ये जा खा रहा है, बासी खाना किसी ने तो बांध के फेंक दिया तो ये जाके खाएगा. So this is what the children see, the birds. These are found in birds which are nestlings who can't even fly because the mother parent bird are giving them plastic also. That's a shocking part of it. And this is how they get caught. And average Indian cow has 10 kilos of plastic in her, which means 40 such bags full. This is 250 grams. Some Indian cows have 80 kilograms in their stomach, which means the weight of 4 blankets, the weight of the mattress, and the weight of the bed also. 80 kilograms. Some Indian cows have that much plastic inside. So this is a problem statement. We ask the children, do we save them? So even if 150 children are there, they say, sir, what to do? Because they are still young, they haven't experienced failure, they don't have any responsibility. So they have a consciousness which is ready actually for global things. Jijamata decided that the child Shivaji Maharaj at the age of 11, 12, 13 should be told all about what is going on the planet. At that time, the world was India. And that adolescents, as they grow up, have the ability to grow into leaders. If they are faced with that stimulus, then they respond to the stimulus. If we say you can't even do a job, then he will try to become a small human being who only manages that. So, before the children, we place this huge responsibility. And now the 150 children have done work in such a way that 1,72,000 children are there in Pune. What do they do? The answer is in only 2 slides. These 2 slides work in New York schools, we have in Brooklyn. These 2 work in a village called Beni Mellal in Morocco, where Sagar Mitra is taught as Azdike al-Mohet. Azdike means friends and al-Mohet means ocean. You don't have to change the slides because the children understand the languages of love. We say to save the birds and fish, take a bag and collect plastic raddi. That's it. That's all that they have done. 2 slides. If you have more than 2 slides, by the time it goes to the world, it will be into 20 PhDs. Distorted into many ways. So we say that all over the world, there is already a culture of collecting kagaj ka raddi. You piggyback dry plastic raddi on it. These are the plastics. They ask us which. We say don't think about single-use, double-use. Any plastic which kills a bird, any plastic which kills a fish, they don't bother about whether it's single-use or double-use. All that is all human nonsense. All plastic is useful. All plastic is harmful. All plastic should not be thrown. All of it we will buy. All of it we will recycle. Don't listen to anyone who says it can't be recycled. राजकुमार राजकुमारी अपने घर से लाते हैं. Parents approve of the program. Teachers approve of the program because they don't bring every day. They bring once a month. There are 5 rules. I won't go into that. If anyone joins us to create one school also, so you'll get to know what those rules are. This is how they bring it. Perhaps we see their video at the end. Okay. This is how it is collected. It is weighed in the weighing machine. We buy it. We take it away. We ask the children, have we collected garbage or saved the life of birds and fish? And they all say, save the life of birds and fish. Then we tell them, वो स्वच्छ भारत का आईना जो है वो बदल दो. स्वच्छ और भारत लिखा है तो स्वच्छता और अहिंसा ऐसे लिख लो उसके ऊपर. भारत के जगह पे अहिंसा लिख लो. आप स्वच्छता कर रहे हो, उसमें से पंछी मछली बच रहे हैं. If they save 10 kilos of plastic, it would have, after breaking down to microplastic, destroyed 1 square kilometer of ocean. That's a huge job they do. This particular load is 125 kilos. During the pandemic, we continued because 2 years the schools were closed. The children rang us up. So we created 200 housing societies as collection centers. The young people work with us, risking everything. This is 1 ton of plastic after compressing it 6 times. This is what we are collecting every week. It's like 4 container loads outer volume. Of course, this is photoshopped. 10 tons a month. You see the car and you see the plastic. In Pune alone, na? That's a massive job. We say to the children, you are already leaders. You show me any adult group which collects like this every month. नदी के पास जाके थोड़े गंदे टुकड़े उठाएंगे, वो गवर्नमेंट को देंगे, वो लैंडफिल में जाके फेंकते हैं. मेरे पृथ्वी के यहाँ से उठाया, वहाँ फेंक दिया. तो उसमें संस्कार क्या हो रहा है? ये कैसे भी काम करो. 30 tons every 3 months. That's massive. In Pune, already going on. This is what happens to it. This is a machine. Now I won't go into very much detail. It goes into a hopper. It comes out as almost paste-like threads which are taken through water. And then these are chopped. And 50% of the plastic changes to granules. राजकुमार राजकुमारी लाते हैं, उसके ग्रैन्यूल्स बनते हैं, और उनको पूछो कि आपने प्लास्टिक का काम क्या, वो कहते हैं नहीं हम पंछी मछली बचा रहे हैं. Every 10 kilos they bring, they're saving 1 square kilometer of water body from microplastic. 10 kilos microplastic, you throw it, it will spread over 1 kilometer, 1 square kilometer. So these are pictures of recycled stuff. I'm not going to go into that. So many types of recycling. 100 kgs of plastic will change into 25 kilos of butane gas, 25 kilos of coal, and 50 kilos of a diesel substitute almost. So all the plastic is gone. So this is the program. Currently we are working with 4 cities, and Maharashtra government has called us. And with the Maharashtra government now we are working out how to take this program to 8.5 million high school students. So 150 up to 2.5 lakh we have. So अभी 85 लाख 150 से यदि 2.5 लाख लाते हो तो 2.5 लाख से 85 lakhs तो ला सकते. So we went to NCERT. I'm not going to show the slides ahead. NCERT के भी slides है. वहाँ के डेप्यूटी डायरेक्टर्स प्लेज कर रहे हैं कि बच्चों को नहीं, पहले हमारे डायरेक्टरेट से एवरीवन, डायरेक्टर एंड अप टू द गेट कीपर, वी विल ब्रिंग द बैग ऑफ प्लास्टिक फर्स्ट. So we want the person whom we talk to show that they are into applied living. Otherwise, we are dead. We know this is happening and I still buy a bottle. Come on. We are human beings. We are intelligent. We are spiritual beings where our compliance means 100 marks, non-compliance is 0 marks. And that's why we are in a mess. We never took life seriously enough. These children are teaching us, I'll end with this now, that there is a group of human minds, 5th to 12th, 1 billion human beings who sit at one place every day. You don't have to call them like this. You don't have to gather the addresses. You have to address the gatherings only. Because they are gathered together already. All over the world. 1 billion human minds. And they are learning something new every day. Not what older people do. So from 5th to 12th, when they shift as Sagar Mitra ahead, by 2030 we will be able to get it in the syllabus of every country. After that you count it, that when they shift ahead, 1 billion shift ahead in 8 years, then the next billion shift ahead in 8 years, and there you have it, 8 iterations, and you have repopulated. Children who will say that Ukraine is my nation, but Ukraine plus ocean is the true nation. Russia is my nation, but Russia plus ocean is my true nation. So the last commons on the planet, the first commons on the planet, even before human beings were there, the ocean was there. There was lava rush on the ground. We have forgotten that commons. And we felt that our heart and head is so small that we should not dare to look at this. So we created a program where the children dare to look at it. And the children create systems where from New York we get a call to come there and do the work. We never apply anywhere. Spiritual honesty is किसने बुलाया तो जाए. Advertising नहीं करना है, zero. बुलाया तो जाए. अभी गवर्नमेंट भी बुला रहा है कि वो प्लान दे दो हमें 8.5 मिलियन बच्चों का, तो हम जाते ही नहीं है. जाते ही नहीं है. सही में बुलाए, फिर से बुलाए, डेस्परेटली बुलाए. फिर हम कंडीशंस बना के जाएंगे. उनके पीछे पीछे नहीं जाएंगे, मिनिस्टर साहब ये करना है. That's not authentic living. If we know better how to do it, then he better not interfere with how it is done. So we wait till they come and they say, oh, we want to do it. Tomorrow I'm going to Nashik, and day after tomorrow we are having a 2-hour meeting with the commissioner. How can we bring Sagar Mitra to all the schools of Nashik? And we are now having an online program. What we can do together, immediately I'll go into that. Enough of this talk. We have an online program. Ambezogai, 15 teachers called us. They said, can we start in Ambezogai? So we took 1 hour online for 7 days. Every week 1 hour. And now they have already recruited 11 schools and already got their 700 kilos of the first plastic there. And 7 schools means about 500 students per school. 3,500 volunteer ban bhi gaye. So we have an online program. Soon we'll have a walkthrough where even we don't have to be present over there. Every Tuesday we have a helpline on Zoom. 2 of us sit there. If nobody comes, that's okay. We do our planning. Anyone comes and says, I want to start in my city, we can give online training. They can start in the city. We don't have to go there. So Sagar Mitra has matured in one tup, 12 years, 2011 to 2023. Plastic is an issue which, going into the chemistry of it and so on and so forth, I did it. Definitely it counts for me also to know what that is and why it has grown so much. But what counts is how do we reach 1 billion children by 2030. And it can be done with our organization has only 2 employees. One is the accounts guy and one is a driver. Everyone else is we say embedded systems management. Everyone else is authentic living people. And we have managed to reach totally 2.5 lakh students and more than 300 housing societies with hardly any expense. You can say it's zero expense actually. It's an embedded systems management program. I urge you to look into it. Every time we have a talk like this, we'll end up with at least one school from that in 6 months, and that means about 1,000 people. Even if 300 children come in, बालक टू पालक प्रोग्राम है. तो पिताजी भी जब मोबाइल लाते तो कहते तेरा सागर मित्र स्कूल का प्रोग्राम है, बेटी ये ले ले, बबल रैप ले ले, बहुत तू सयानी है. So it's a balak to palak program. At some time we can go into the details of this because it is a Kundalini Yoga program which is called Vacha Diksha. What we do is place a large problem before human beings, and those who already have their Muladhara Chakra awake, they jump into it. क्योंकि उनके भीतर जो शिव बैठा है, जीव के भीतर जो शिव बैठा है अनंत, वो जान लेता है कि ये समंदर तो मैंने बनाया तो अभी मैं साफ कर लूँगा. तो ये परावाणी के लेवल पे होता है, बच्चे को समझता भी नहीं. आउट ऑफ 10,000 चिल्ड्रन वी गेट 2 रिटर्निंग टू अस आफ्टर दे क्रिएट देयर करियर्स. इन 12 years we have had that happen now. So Sagar Mitra is a scouting program to find out those 2 children out of every 10,000 who come back without having an alumni association. After facing life around 24 years old, they come back and say ki I feel that there is some global solution in this. And then we take them in. If you give me 2 minutes, I want to talk about one young boy. You'll see what kind of child gets created through Sagar Mitra. I owe it to him. His name is Omkar Ganu. When I was in 8th standard, he went through 6 layers of leadership on his own, because authentic living is on own. कोई गुरु वगैरह नहीं रहता. 8th, 9th, 10th standard he fetched plastic like this. Then his back changed. In 11th, 12th he went with our posters, and he went from school to school in Pune on his own. 11वीं 12वीं का अभ्यास भी किया और प्रिंसिपल के पास बैठ के कहता था कि हमारे स्कूल में ये प्रोग्राम है, आप क्यों नहीं करते आपके स्कूल में. तो 11th 12th में ही मैनेज टू ब्रिंग इन 9,000 वॉलंटियर्स. दैट मीन्स 18,000 हाथ जोड़ दिए. सो हियर अ चाइल्ड हु इज कलेक्टिंग प्लास्टिक इन अ बैग स्टार्ट्स कलेक्टिंग चिल्ड्रन इन अ स्कूल. यू सी इज कलेक्टिंग चिल्ड्रन इन स्कूल. देन स्टडिंग वेरी हार्ड ही सेलेक्टेड टू बी environment engineer at KIT, Kolhapur Institute of Technology, and he was there for 4 years. After studying very hard for 2 years, he started meeting the commissioner there, and he would eat his head. Pune में अच्छा program है, आप कोल्हापुर में क्यों नहीं करते? So finally, when the commissioner called up Pelsetti sir, I went there and 400 principals were seated there. Now, do you see this child is bringing now schools inside a city? He was bringing plastic inside a bag. Then he was bringing children inside schools. Now he's bringing schools inside a city, and that's only his 3rd layer. He's gone to an international level also now. His 4th layer was he put this on the internet, and he was one of the few Indians who became Ashoka Young Changemakers. Ashoka Young Changemaker. He got into that program, and now he's an alumni with 35,000 such young people like him from all the countries on the planet. This is a program run by Silicon Valley Indian entrepreneurs. So now he can take Sagar Mitra to 35,000 alumni in that Ashoka Young Changemakers. And then recently when I went to Alibag to give a talk on plastic to the ZP, they announced his name that he is going to talk on e-waste. He's an e-waste advisor to Maharashtra at the age of 22. I didn't know that he was going to be there advising the Zilla Parishad on e-waste. So we wrote a respectful letter to Mr. Omkar Ganu that we are completely honored that you are part of this work. Please will you be a trustee in Sagar Mitra? And he has very graciously agreed to be a trustee. He is our youngest trustee. So this is how the cycle goes. This is one story. There are many. इतना सारा समंदर के बारे में बात करते तो उस पर मेरा प्यार है, वो प्यार तो गा के बताऊँ आप. नहीं तो बात कहाँ बनती है कम्युनिकेशन की. हम अब तो अग्रह से बच्चों के आगे समंदर का हमारा जो प्यार है वो गा के बताते हैं. The meaning of this is that the ocean is always there to help us. Was always there, will always be there. Sahara. आदि अंत सागर सदा सहाई घन हमारा मीत, आदि अंत सागर सदा सहाई, घन हमारा मीत, सागर संग लागे रहियो हमरा प्रीत, सागर संग लागे रहियो हमरा प्रीत. Thank you so much.
I think that song was also a very beautiful way, and I wish I didn't have to speak after that because that was really wonderful. So I think I found a lot of similarities in the way that you described how people think. So in the sense that even in Pune, people are ready to build a road from the Tekdi. People are ready to do riverfront development when they don't even know what it is and what it will do to the river. And these are all also people who are the officials who are taking these decisions. They are also living in Pune. So sometimes even I think that don't they realize that they are making a city which is basically going to be unlivable. So I think that I got very, very starkly from what you said about authentic living. I don't know how to do that. And I think you have figured out how to actually bring that authentic living in our, stream of thought by actually looking at children. Because I think their mind is such that they can take that kind of a challenge. And I think that's wonderful. And yes, I think plastic is a topic which has a lot of politics, it has a lot of economics involved. But thank you so much for bringing that spiritual element in it. I think that is something which was probably missing in all of this, and that identity that we are a part of a whole and not just one on each individual on its own. So thank you so much for that. I would also like to take this opportunity to thank Vijay sir, who actually suggested your name and then coordinated and asked you to actually be a part of this. So thank you so much, sir. Thank you to Bhandarkar Institute for this space. And last but not the very least, all of you people who have come here today on a Sunday evening when it is raining, I think you people are our greatest assets because everybody who is here in this room has sort of a seed of doing in them. Otherwise, we don't really come to such things. Somewhere we feel that we can make a change, we can do something about things that are happening around us, and that's why we are here. So thank you so much for coming.
आदि अंत सागर सदा सहाई, घन हमारा मीत, आदि अंत सागर सदा सहाई, घन हमारा मीत, सागर संग लागे रहियो हमरा प्रीत, सागर संग लागे रहियो हमरा प्रीत.